William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Accept the minutes.
Move the second, we accept the minutes. Go forward. All in favor? Aye. Opposes? All right.
Just a housekeeping, if you all do have microphones and they are recording, I'm not sure if they're broadcasting, but go ahead and hit if you're going to speak, go ahead and hit the button in front of you and your mic will light up red, and that means that you're on.
Okay, I must make this statement before this meeting ends. I am sitting here very close to Mayor Pro Tem Alonzo and embassy of Mayor Rollins. So today I'm feeling extremely focused and strong.
All right.
Oh, and City Manager Gonzalez is sitting.
I am not sure that how much.
That's a Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Eric Wilson is sitting to my left. I guess it's great company. I want you all to know that. Okay, as we go forward, the only thing I would ask next is that we have a number of individuals who need to be out of here today relatively quickly. So what I want to do is not truncate the meeting so much, but I want you to be concerned as you make statements or comments regarding the agenda items or issue, whatever it may be. Try to be as succinct as you possibly can so we can go forward. I want to, with that then, move, before we move much deeper into the agenda, we'll just go right to it. Let's go to the voted items. First would be public arts recommendation. I think, and you and Mr. Spriggins, I believe.
Yes.
Right, and Mr.
Rich.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Rich. All right,
Mic, please.
hello.
Okay.
Karen, are you here?
I'm here.
All right, would you stand up? This is Karen Blesson. More to come lately on that. And Mauricio Navarro. Mauricio, are you here?
Mauricio's not able to be here today.
Okay. This is one of those that the Public Art Committee was energized over.
Now, over your head.
This is I'm going to read some talking points because Kay cannot be here. There was a recommendation by unanimous vote that came out of the Public Art Committee. And just as an aside, this is a project that Ms. Blesson has led, directed for a number of years. It has engaged the services of an artist and others, but most important for me is the involvement of kids from our schools. So this project involved children from Adamson, from Sunset, from Booker T, the Young Hill High School at Dallas Khan Academy. And if you don't have any pictures, do we have anything to show? I'll pass around what was given at public art meeting, and I'll pass around a photograph of the particular object. The piece in question is three-dimensional mosaic. It will stand approximately 17 feet tall. It will be installed near the crosswalk in front of the Texas Theater over an Oak Cliff. It has the recommendation and approval from the City of Dallas Public Works Department in furtherance of the Jefferson Boulevard beautification project being done by the Department of Public Works to enhance the streetscape along the busy thoroughfare. This is a prime example of many on the commission that believe that public art should be throughout every community and should be enjoyed by everyone, regardless of language, economics, color, background, nationality, nation of birth. And we had the opportunity to speak with some of the students. We had the opportunity of asking Karen many questions and fortunately learning about this organization. Unfortunately, many of us did not know about this group before the presentation to the Public Art Committee. The artwork itself complies with the goals, objects, and eligible criteria of the public art program outlined in the city's cultural policy as follows. The artwork shall represent artistic freedom through its choices of materials and handcrafted design. The artwork shall be accessible to the public. The high-quality artwork shall enhance the cultural appeal of the city of Dallas. The work was commissioned by the organization, 29 pieces. It is a two-part collaborative project, the theme based on the line, "Make my hands respect the things you have made," from the Native American passage. It's with the authority of the Public Art Committee and a sense that this really is a step forward in the display of public art throughout our city, that we vote and support the recommendation, unanimous vote from the public art.
That's the recommendation.
That is the
That is the
recommendation.
recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, moving second. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. I just have to say that, Karen, would you just step forward just for a second, please? Just for a quick second, please. Karen Blesson is the lead artist, inspirator, in my opinion, on that project. In my view, she's provided and given us something in the city, something that is substantially engaging, of appreciation and growing appreciation and respect, not only for the art, the work, but also for the people that's involved themselves. So Karen, would you give us just maybe a few of your comments on this project?
Yeah, thank you so much. We, 29 Pieces, the kids, we are filled with gratitude, really, to everybody on this committee, to David, to Kay Callis, to Jennifer, to Lynn Rushton, Marie Hidalgo, wherever you are, to everybody who has helped us navigate this process of donating this piece of art to the city. I think that we're doing something that is a step. It's the first of 29 pieces that we'd like to donate to the city, and we could not be happier or more proud that we have made this effort and that it's been received with such enthusiasm. So thank you so much. Thank you to the Public Art Committee. I thought that the presentation was fantastic. It was a great opportunity for the kids to be faced with really good questions. I appreciated that. They appreciated that. They were ecstatic when they left there that day, because they felt like they'd been tested and they felt like they had passed the test. So it's going to make a lot of people very happy, and I think it's going to be a really beautiful piece of art that will be unveiled then on September 17th, leading up to the International Day of Peace, which is September 21st. So I just want to say a very heartfelt thank you, and feeling a lot of gratitude, a lot of joy about this.
Thank you. Keep us posted on the progress.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make a budget adjustment right quickly, because we are moving really fast, and some people have to leave, but I want us all to be a part of this presentation. I want to move right to the budget update at this particular time. Mr.
Good afternoon. Some of this will be redundant from last month's budget update, and that some of it's the same information, but as was requested, we've digested it and actually not digested, we've spread it out and diced it a little bit deeper, and we have a little bit more information, but as was the situation last month, we are actually right before. Cliff and Jennifer and I meet with City Manager's office tomorrow. So we are giving you the most up-to-date information, and we'll have more information tomorrow. So we'll be giving you an update on where we are.
David?
Yep.
We're not meeting tomorrow.
No.
Just you do that.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I just want you to know that once you get that update, we don't mind waiting for a few weeks before we come back together again. This is our third meeting, I believe. Go ahead, Dave.
So if in the next slide, you can see sort of where we are in the budget process. We're sort of right in the middle, and this is sort of when everything's been put into the bowl and it is all getting baked. We've had a number of budget updates, citizen input, preliminary options, and now we sort of bake it based on the real numbers coming in. July 25th is a key time with the certified property tax value. On August 9th, the city manager's actual budget does get sent out. This will be on your screens, as well as we have paper copies as well. Then we start the town hall meetings and moving up to the adoption of the budget. Now, as I said last month, our general fund budget is in 3 different services: cultural services contracts, which is all of our grant programs; cultural venues, which is all of the cultural centers; and public art. WRR is in a separate category because it's an enterprise fund. So the next few slides actually break down where we currently are in the draft budget, and I emphasize very strongly, draft budget. This is sort of this is our current understanding of where we are. The current understanding of where we are in the budget right now is that cultural services contracts will remain flat. And this is where I divided out how each of the programs is funded from COP, CPP, and of note, the $3.5 million number for COP does not include the $1.4 million of hot tax. So the actual amount of money going out to the COP organizations is 4.9 million and some change. CPP at 311, the CPP special projects, that's the individual artist and other grants at 82.5. CVP, our new program, Cultural Vitality, at 225, CAP at 280, and then all of the other things, administration, Majestic, and all of the other get lumped into the salaries and benefits, and then the other is the administrative costs of the entire agency. So there are sort of 2 areas, issues where we need your input, whether it comes today or email us later or through the budget process, because we have only a couple of areas where we can actually have some discretionary move pots of money around. With the new Cultural Vitality program, if you think of that sort of as 2 programs, and next year we're going to kind of look at it as in 2 programs, because as part of this process, 2 initiatives have really risen out of it. The whole notion of the Cultural Equity Program and the whole notion of sustainability and organizational health. So probably what we will do is we will pull those out into 2 different programs and do 2 separate applications, 2 separate review panels, probably both early in the year, so that we have plenty of time through the course of the year for the activities to take place. So if you count, go ahead.
Can you repeat it? I didn't get it here in the 2 categories.
Sustainability, I mean, there were originally 3 categories in CVP, the sort of things that rose to the surface: equity, audience and neighborhood engagement, and sustainability. And audience and neighborhood engagement really overlapped the sustainability and sort of marketing and audience development for our organizations, but it also overlaps the equity in terms of targeting neighborhoods and diving deeper into underserved neighborhoods. So really, I think those 2 programs, and this is in the current draft as we're speaking, and we will continue to convene and meet and town hall and all of that before we go to paper with this in the fall. But that's sort of where we're sitting. And I bring that up only in some detail. If you count cultural vitality as 2 and special support as 1, we've literally doubled the number of grant programs that we used to have. We went from 3 to 6 in just 2 years. So in terms of just the administrative and panel review amount of time, we've doubled it for the agency. So kudos to Charla and her team and all of you for your work in that. So this slide I bring up because one of the things that we can do is we could move some money around. You could, in your main recommendation for the Cultural Organizations Program, recommend that less money go to COP, or you could recommend that more money go to COP. But this is sort of the pot of money that we have to deal with for our grant programs. And you can see with cultural organizations, projects, special support, vitality, and then community artist program. So one of the things we are interested in hearing from you is, well, because we are getting a lot of interest in with the individual grant program, with cultural equity, but we also don't want to ignore our major organizations. And you look at the cultural organizations program, and that's a whole lot of money. That's nearly $5 million, but it's nearly $5 million in attendance and 71,000 services. So that is by far the lion's share of our money, but it's also the lion's share of the services that we are giving to every council district and zip code across the city. So this is you'll have copies of this. So take a look at this and talk about how you might retool that, because even if the budget stays flat, we will have into August, September, even into October to move pots of money around in these categories.
David, what is, just for clarification, the cultural centers?
Cultural centers, the next slide.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Excuse me, before we get into these things right now, why don't we let him get through the presentation and then come back and focus?
Just a couple slides left.
Just have a few slides, I think, left, and then we'll go down around the table, and everyone will have an opportunity to speak. David, go ahead.
So on the next slide, we have the city-owned cultural venues, which is currently the only service that we are looking at any sort of cut. And if you remember last time, we had about $60,000 cut from cultural center programming and about $50,000 cut from maintenance. And so this shows if we just do a straight line reduction on all of the cultural centers equally, and then the reduction in maintenance, it ends up being about a 16.5% cut in facility maintenance and about a 21.5% cut to the cultural centers programming. So the numbers in yellow are actually what the cut would be. It's $111,000. Then in the next slide, actually in the last column, and then in the next slide are the enhancements, the extra dollars that we have asked for. And that is enhancement number A was $400,000 extra for maintenance issues at cultural facilities. Enhancement B was a funding for a third event coordinator at the Majestic Theater. And then enhancement C, which is the least sexy of them, but which is perhaps the most important, just in terms of right-sizing our budget for stagehand labor, security, and custodial costs at the Majestic and City Performance Hall. Public art on the next slide remains flat. We've rearranged through some salary savings from not hiring a fourth coordinator. We were able to increase the amount of public art maintenance and leave everything else fairly flat. There is an enhancement for public art, and that's a little less than $270,000 to leverage current OCA programs to support the Neighborhood Plus program and small, temporary, permanent, and other sorts of neighborhood-based public art, using art in a very broad sense, in that it could be what we would literally talk of as public art, but it could also be pop-up cultural centers, other neighborhood engagement events, classes, music, concerts, wherever, sort of deep dive into the neighborhoods. Next slide, probably also on your radar, but not part of our budget conversation, is there is talk of there is in the city manager's current draft budget an additional $1.5 million allocation for the AT&T Performing Arts Center. As I just said, this is not part of our budget conversation. It did not involve our office. AT&T went directly to the city manager and the mayor and city council for this allocation. The next slide shows you sort of the schedule of the various important dates, when the budget workshops are, when the city manager's budget gets delivered to council, et cetera, all the way through to October 1st, when we will begin the next fiscal year. That's what I have for you, and we'll certainly open to questions and feedback.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Holland, and then we move to Mr. Spriggins, and then to the hand I see right now, Mr. Smith. Okay?
My question is about the 1.4 million hot tax. What is the flexibility in allocating that money into different units, or what are the restrictions that we currently have or expect to have in the future?
The restrictions, and we were very careful because there are restrictions in that it has to be linked to tourism. So the way we allocated the money this year was to Cliff, is it top 5? We allocated it as part of the COP program to our 5 largest organizations. The ones that we knew had zip code data for tourists, the ones that we knew were very objectively and they could prove the information attracting tourism. Now what that allowed us to do is it offset the money, the general fund money from that we were otherwise giving to those organizations. So the answer is yes and no to your question. No, we cannot use the hot tax money just anywhere we want, but we could put more of the hot tax money into the COP organizations, which would then free up general fund budget to use elsewhere.
But it's dependent, as we know now, on how people collect data on who attends.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So for example, the Perot Museum has impeccable data on tourists, out-of-town visitors, and they have a lot of it. So likewise, the museum, Dallas Black Dance, the DMA, the Pollock exhibit has lots of tourists. So that's why we did it that way, and we'll continue to sort of work in that direction.
And a third avenue might be to also look at those standards we've created to, when possible, look to other size organizations. And although it's difficult, and I understand that might be one thing we explore.
Absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Spriggins?
My question is in relationship to the cultural center. So the decision to cut the budgets, can you kind of explain what the thought process is there?
Well, that came from the city manager's office. We gave the city manager's office a number of options and a number of targets and what the results would be from those cuts. We were given the challenge to say we need at least 2 scenarios of how to, originally it was $967,000 of reductions, and it got reduced down to 111. So this is what is in the current draft, emphasis draft, of the budget. Now, it is subject to change. It can be, I mean, we could, at the end of the year, find $110,000 or $111,000 and take it out of CAP, or take it out of COP, or any of the programs.
At the last budget briefing, 3 council people did see this on the citywide budget briefing and speak in favor of not taking this cut. So, you know, to the extent that you are speaking with council people, there was vocal support to not go after this cut. And so, you know, again, that'll be in kind of the making of the sausage for the next month. But
So as you're briefing us, we can just express through our communications what our thoughts, ideas, feelings are about that. Okay.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah. I'd just like to speak out in favor of maintaining the budget of the neighborhood cultural centers. In speaking with them, I think whether it's perception or reality, but the message that I've been given is that historically, their budgets for maintenance and programming are the first to get cut when we're looking to make cuts, whereas some of the larger organizations don't receive similar treatment. And also don't, the hot tax, I think, is a good example of, the cultural centers don't get to see that. I understand why, but, so the top 5 largest organizations do get the benefit of all of that 1.4 million, but, maybe we could adjust for that in our COP funding of those and, find that money and allocate it to the cultural centers.
Just to clarify, all of and this goes back to how I was speaking with Sylvia, the increase, all of the cultural centers got significant increases in their program budgets last year, but it was due to the hot tax money. So no, the cultural centers do not get hot tax money, but because we were able to use the hot tax money for those top 5 organizations, the cultural centers all took a significant increase in their program budgets.
Okay. Then in that case, I'd just like to express a strong preference for doing that again.
And I will say, later on in the agenda, when we are talking about summer programming, I'm trying to also arm you all with some fabulous factoids of what is happening at the cultural centers this summer, so that you have good, meaty examples of the quality of the programming and the range. So, thank you, David.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rich.
Let me apologize before I start speaking. I do not intend by my comments to offend anyone. I believe collectively everything that is going in our city adds to the quality of our residents as well as our visitors. But I am concerned, as many of us have expressed for the last several years, of what I consider to be end runs to members of the council or to the city manager's office when there are legitimate needs for additional funds to maintain certain organizations, to maintain buildings. I am concerned that there is a consideration of an additional 1.5 million, although I understand the need for it. I'm bothered that our first obligation should be to the residents of our city, people that have chosen for all kinds of reasons to live here, shop here, give birth here, die here, vote here. Our cultural centers, it seems to be inconsistent in thought. If our council believes in a Neighborhood Plus program, and at the same time we are considering decreasing funding to our cultural centers, it seems to be inconsistent. It seems to be a slap in the faces of many that love their centers, the centers they send their children to, the centers that many of our residents go to because they cannot afford to come down to Flora Street and participate in great programming. I'm a season's ticket holder to the symphony, the opera, the theater. I go to a lot of things in our city because I know how it can enrich our lives. But I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the debate that many of us have had over the last 3 years regarding public art and the maintenance, and yet we don't really see what it is we need, which has been identified. We have spent the money to identify the need, and yet we don't have the resources in order to honor the need that has been identified. If we didn't identify it, then we should identify it at least and make a decision. If I've offended anyone, I apologize, but I think we're all in this together. Thank you.
Okay.
Well,
Further comments from commissioners around the table? Jenna, let you respond.
I just wanted to add one thing I found very encouraging at the Art, Culture, and Library Committee meeting on Monday, is I think that there is a lot of love and support for the cultural centers, and we are going to do a better job of telling that story. And in addition, looking for ways to take that kind of programming to places like the public libraries. We pretty much got a mandate from one of our committee members to figure out how to program those 5 black box theaters in places like Bachman Lake or Pleasant Grove, where we might not have a cultural center, but we do have a really valuable asset. So please know that we are looking for ways to be very resourceful, but I no offense taken, I think a lot of people share your feelings.
Okay. Good point. Other commissioner comments? Questions or comments on the presentation? I have just a few I'd like to emphasize. You've heard points raised here by commissioners, but I think there's something else. We have a window now, it appears, from the schedule David laid out, from at least now through August 9th, literally through September. What I think I would like to request again for this group of commissioners, based upon not only the points that they raised, but the points that you've all made specifically about the budget, that there are talking points. There's a list of talking points that could come to all commissioners, so at least we're speaking, if not always the same key, because some of us sing a little bit better than others, but at least we would have a script that we follow, that's consistent, that comes from the commission, rather than a commissioner. Individual commissioners, we all have the opportunity to make our individual pitches to whomever and whenever, but as a commission body, we need to have talking points. And it would be really important if we can have those as the summer wears on. I'm really concerned that we have them before we get to the public hearing schedule. I think besides maybe 1 or 2 commissioners that here, many are gone now, but it was pretty lonesome going to the multiple public hearings in communities around this city, and not having us there just even to hear what the communities are saying. Maybe we would understand some of the feedback that you received at the Arts, Cultural, and Library Committee meeting. And by the way, Jennifer did an outstanding job of a presentation for us, but she's absolutely correct, not just one. There was a consensus, a very significant consensus among the Arts, Cultural, and Library Committee members to begin to look very intensely and substantially at neighborhoods, at black box opportunities, at pop-up opportunities, and the performing and visual arts in those communities. And so it's important, again, that we all have that information in some succinct manner so we can all share it. Okay. Are there other questions or comments regarding, and it's just really important that we, the schedule he gave us was very good, I think, and the document passed out, is not the schedule also listed there? I haven't had a chance to wing through it, but it is there. It is. Okay, so that's the schedule of the meeting.
And we'll
so-
work on that maybe next week after our budget deliberation tomorrow. The reality is, I mean.
We would
yeah.
appreciate that.
And
I
I'll
think
share them
we'd
with
be-
you first, John Paul, and then we can, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, you know, share if you want to, but it's okay. All right. Okay, guys, then let's, are there any other further comments relative to the budget at this point from anyone? If not, let's move, we're going to make adjustments back again. Mr. Little Think Tank, Darrell Ratcliffe, would you please come forward, please? At the very last commission meeting, there was a discussion provided from the maker communities about the fire marshal, essentially, and what that challenge is. There was comments about it, what the challenge is, but not so much about resolutions. I've invited Darrell to come back to succinctly give us a sense on behalf of that body what those challenges are and what some resolutions might be to address them. Darrell Ratcliffe. Mitchell.
Hello.
Am I
Yeah.
saying this correct, Darrell? Michelada.
Michelada Think Tank. Thank you.
Michelada.
Thank you so much, John Paul and the rest of the commission for this time to talk about what I feel is one of the most urgent issues that are facing artists working on the ground here in Dallas. And I want to thank Jennifer for already taking the initiative to move forward with this issue. So I'm going to start with this. So this month in the June-July issue of Art in America, there is a article about Dallas, which is wonderful, by Michael Korus from SMU. And the article's called Self-Help, and I'm going to just read a couple paragraphs from it. Whether out of choice or necessity, a number of Dallas artists are launching projects outside the gallery system, producing events and establishing their own collectives and nonprofits. The relatively small contingent of commercial galleries in Dallas simply cannot provide adequate venues or financial support to sustain a diverse and experimental artistic community. Dale Ratcliffe, Arthur Pena, Kelly Croner, and Eli Walker are among those who have worked to alleviate this institutional shortfall, taking it upon themselves to stage exhibitions, build audiences, and connect with other artists. And then towards the end, listening to Pena, Croner, Walker, and Ratcliffe describe their experiences of living and working in Dallas over the past 6 years is an uplifting, if at times disturbing, experience. These artists understand that they cannot afford to be unconcerned about the conditions of production, conditions that they are changing to include far more institutions and strategies than offered by the art market or the downtown arts district. They have learned that there's no Proustian model of cultural development that fits seamlessly with their aspirations of those of their fellow artists. What they and other young artists bestow on Dallas, largely gratis, thanks to their goodwill and sweat equity, is a cornucopia of models for sustainable creative communities. So, I think particularly the Office of Cultural Affairs, this commission over the last several years have taken great steps to foster the grassroots art scene, to realize that as individual artists, as collectives, it's the small things that make our art scene really interesting. And thanks to that support, I think a lot of people are recognizing that nationally as well, which is really exciting. But this year, really starting New Year's Eve, there's been this issue of the very things that this article is celebrating kind of being shut down by other departments, particularly Code and Fire Marshal in the city of Dallas. So I just want to kind of give you a sense of some of the venues that have been shut down, or at least visited by the fire marshal since New Year's Eve. So that which was a space in Deep Ellum, Pariah, which is a space in the Cedars, 3014 space, which was in Deep Ellum, Electric Lotus, which I'm not sure where Electric Lotus is, Ash Studios, which is Fair Park, Basement Gallery, which is Oak Cliff, Beef House, which is Expo Park, Cinder Blot Sessions, Ice House, which is West Dallas, Kettle Art, which is Deep Ellum, Kirk Hopper, which is Deep Ellum, and RO2, which is the Cedars. So at first, it kind of felt like perhaps it was just a one-time thing because a lot of these were New Year's Eve events, and but then over the weeks it continued, and lately it's kind of branched off to even kind of more commercial gallery spaces, not just spaces that combine art and music. So,
Daryl, just for clarification, because I'm not sure everybody understands, these sites you're talking about are usually temporary pop-up art sites, or they are temporary art sites in some way where people are showing their works. Is that correct or incorrect?
So some are and some aren't. So some are sites where they have kind of a programming schedule throughout the year. Usually once a month, sometimes every other month, depending on the site.
And they're in areas that are zoned residential, or do we know that?
It varies.
Okay.
It varies. So, so that's the interesting thing, that it is across a number of communities, a number of different types of sites. But what's interesting is that at least for the last 4 or 5 years, to my knowledge, there wasn't a particular enforcement of some of these codes, particularly with these kind of cultural activities, which are, very generative for the city. And so it's been kind of very alarming to many of us in our community to see this uptick of, compliance. And so I'm here to kind of offer a few possible solutions to that. Because yes, some of these sites are not particularly safe, some are not in compliance. But I think if we believe that, as Mayor Rawlings says, it's important to attract and retain creatives, then I think it's really important that we figure out how to solve the situations, because it has really dampened a lot of the activity just when activity was at an all-time high, and just when we're finally getting the type of city that we've worked so hard for culturally here. And so one of the things is to think about, could there be, out of the Office of Cultural Affairs, a temporary cultural permit that would, kind of provide a temporary CO. Maybe it lasts 3 days to allow an event to happen. Maybe there's an inspection that happens to make sure that the place is safe. But a lot of these places that are safe are getting shut down because of a lack of a CO. And if it's not going to be an ongoing business, but we think, activating vacancy is an important thing, then that could be a way to kind of bridge that gap. Another thing I think is, particularly perhaps through the CVP, is having funds and also the technical support to walk people through getting a CO, if that's what's necessary. Because even though, $2,000 might not seem like a lot for working artists, it is, and then also the time required to navigate the CO process can be really daunting, even for really smart people with some familiarity of government. So I think those are two things that could go a long ways to fixing this, and also, as Jennifer's already started, communication with the fire marshal to kind of see what is happening. Is there a reason for this uptick? I mean, there's a lot of problems in the city. Is this the biggest priorities for that department? So I just wanted to make sure that the commission kind of really understood like the breadth of this, and that, in a really vulnerable time in our ecosystem where we're really poised to continue exploding, that this has been like a bucket of cold water on the art scene.
Okay, a couple things questions, but I want to be sure that I get at least two things. Darrell, one was that the idea of a temporary cultural permit is a kind of progressive, substantial kind of thing that could help sustain that unique community, is what you said. That's one idea that you proposed. The second was the idea of technical support, sort of a toolbox that can assist with navigating, if you will, multiple processes that may be encountered. But again, from that independent maker is what you're proposing. Do I understand you correctly?
Yes, and in addition to that, I was also proposing dedicated funds to help get some of these, particularly the more established and vital spaces, to help them at the very least get back up to code so they can continue doing their work.
Okay, Mr. Rich.
Darrell, just a comment and maybe a suggestion.
I would ask you to consider setting a meeting quickly with Ms. Alonso, the fire marshal, either the executive director or of OCA or her designee, and one person from the commission. Clearly, it's got to be articulated not only by the enforcers, but also those individuals that can change the procedure. This is something that some of us have seen up in Detroit and other places, especially Detroit the last couple of years, because of the vacant buildings and a lot of pop-ups. I personally experienced some of that when I was up there. But I would really recommend that you consider doing that. That way you've got what I perceive, and clearly you should be present, as well, or your representative. Because when I've seen marshals go in on other types of professions, when they haven't focused before, but then we start seeing focus, the first question is why? What is it can we do, and what is being done in order to honor the responsibility of the city, both to provide a reasonably safe and secure environment, for its guests and its residents, but also reasonable steps to encourage and support the further development of what you're talking about. So unless you've had a bad experience with any of the people that I'm talking about, I would ask you to take the lead and get that organized.
Thank you. I have not. I appreciate the suggestion.
All right.
Okay, further comments? Ms. Holland?
I strongly support Daryl and Michelotta's move to giving good art and good Dallas-based art a place to have a home, okay? The statistics show that many artists come to Dallas, but in a not so very short time, they leave. And part of it is the cost of doing business. And one of the things that Daryl is proposing, as they've done in other cities, is getting cost-effective ways to show and have venues, okay? So when we look at it, we should look at other cities' models. We should look at those kinds of avenues that are temporary. But the third thing we should be looking at is city buildings that are currently vacant and have the potential to be additional permanent venues for emerging and artists in general. I was very gratified to have been a part of your Michelada think tanks. It was enlightening and wonderful to have for the city. And I think this is, for me, one of my number one priorities, to have that breadth of creativity. So thanks.
Further comments? Jess?
Yeah, I didn't know that there were, it sounded like 11 that you named off this year. That's nuts, because that's how I think a lot of us started, right? A lot of us even got, that we celebrated art and we celebrated creativity. And I can support using vacant government spaces. It's been something I've been touting for a long time, especially if we have them. But the formalization of having spaces where, artists should be throwing events is kind of not why it works. It works really good because of the serendipity of it. So I'm really in support of the temporary cultural permit, but I also I'm really in support of I don't know. I wonder what the change is. I really wonder why that's happened. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it.
The further commissioner comment on this issue? Daryl, let us thank you again for sharing this information. It's extremely important that we had it, and it seems like Ms. Shipp, our new executive director, has received quite a bounty, if you will, of input from commissioners as well as from Mr. Darrow. Ms. Jennifer, would you want to make some comments at this point?
it on? Yes. First of all, thank you so much to Daryl and the whole Michelada think tank. I knew of 2 of these before this meeting, so it was very helpful to kind of see the scope. And again, does seem to be citywide. I think when he's talking about support for technical things maneuvering the city, there's probably actually a longer list than just this one issue. So that might actually be the beginning or the genesis of a longer conversation. Why limit it to just getting a temporary permit? So if there's any other way we can broaden that conversation, it would be wonderful. And Cliff, I will say, did some really wonderful research with the fire marshals. So they now know that we are starting to dig in on some of these examples. And heretofore, they have been very cooperative, but we will learn more in either, just regardless of any kind of meeting, so that we can kind of understand what's been going on, which is, it's all been very illuminating. And Cliff has an excellent relationship over there. So, and again, safety is foremost. So it's one of those, the city would also be in a horrible situation if, gosh forbid, something were to ever happen. And so please understand that too. We want to make sure that we're honoring our colleagues who are charged with that as well.
Okay. All right, I think we continue with you, or your designated Cultural Vitality Program Summary. It's the next agenda item. Will it be Charlotte? Okay.
Okay, so I passed out right before the meeting, you have 2 pieces of paper. One is a list of all of the cultural vitality people who we awarded funding this year. We had a lot of organizations, and we also had 6 individual artists. You can also see sort of how it went from cultural equity to audience engagement to sustainability with organizations that we already fund. And you can see the panel scores and the award amounts. We did the awards from the panel scores as a percentage of what they were requesting. So higher scores got a whole 100% of what they requested, and then it moved down from there. So that's, you've got that information. And then the second piece of paper is a list of all those organizations with then a description of what the project is that we funded. So it's there by organization and by individual artists. We piloted this program this year. We learned a lot from it on many levels. We'll be totally revamping and reworking it and working on criteria and that sort of thing. So when it rolls out again in the fall, criteria will be much more descriptive, and people will know more exactly what we're looking for and that kind of stuff. We're also going to roll that out with some community meetings before we actually reopen this up so that we can get input from the public and that sort of thing. So that's cultural vitality. That's my summary.
Any questions? Ms. Hidalgo?
Yeah, hi Charlotte, thank you for this. When did you, on this list, at what percentage level did it start being less than what they asked for?
I believe, and I didn't bring that with me, but it's
Okay.
like from 95 to 100, we gave 100%. Then we went down 75, 50, and 25.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have one question. Are there metrics in place to track the progress of how these funds are being used?
Yes. Since this is a pilot program, we're still sort of seeing how that goes. We just actually got the last contract finalized yesterday, because with the city attorney and all the things that we have to check before we can actually make a contract, it takes a little bit more time than our normal things. But all these groups they get a 75% up front, and then when they've completed their project, they have to do a final report, and in that final report, we'll be getting metrics, attendance, location, all that kind of stuff, so we can track city council and, who we're impacting and that kind of stuff, and then they'll get their final 25%.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Just a follow-up comment to this, I think is a great question, Ms. Saldivar. This particular program was a response, an outgrowth and a response to council expressed concerns during last year's hearings, what they heard from community, what they heard themselves. And I just think that this is very critical that we follow the metrics that you're talking about, as we go into this budget year, it's going to be very, very critical that they hear what we have been able to do so far with the investment. I think this particular program, more than anything else, locked in the 1.4 million achievement that we had last year, because it really spoke to the city as a whole in a unique and a more dynamic way in communities that had been experienced before. Miss, you seem that you just really are eager to get in, so I want you to.
And I feel like I loved the question about the follow-up, because we've talked about that. And like with any new program, I think it'll be very interesting to see what we get back. So we can't wait to give you all that report, because I think it'll be extremely interesting to see the range. It's kind of, you're going to hear about the summer programming later. I can guarantee you with these, you're going to see quite a range, which is part of what we can report back on. And then as we think about next year, how do we adjust the process to try to, identify where we're really, really, hitting home runs and hit more of them.
One final comment I'll make on this is that for those who haven't witnessed Charlotte in her magic castle of getting through the grants requests, trying to as fairly, as equitably, and as dynamically as possible distribute the available funds, it is an experience. So if those of you who may not even be associated with allocations, but are interested when those dates are sent around to us, I hope again, I would say to the staff, all of the dates of all of the meetings should be sent to all the commissioners all the time. Really take an opportunity to sit in on some of those meetings, and I think you would really just be overwhelmed, but very, very pleased, not only with what's happening in the city of Dallas, but how we are responding with the resources available to us. So thank you again for your great work, Charlotte.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, sir. Mr. Smith.
Okay. First, Charlotte, thank you so much for your work with the CVP. That was such a huge effort. I was going back through my emails regarding CVP and the tweaks that could be made to it the next go-around. And there were a lot of good suggestions from the CVP panel on how the program could be improved. So I just want to make sure that, as you go and tweak the program, that there's a way to incorporate the suggestions from the CVP panel and the commissioners, because I think there's some really good stuff in there.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I've kept all of that. That's all things we're going to go back over. And like I said, we'll put a package together, and then we'll present it out. We'll do some community workshops and that sort of thing to get more feedback, because we have kind of two sides. We have great panelist comments and that sort of thing, but then also on our end, we found out a lot of things of how do we actually get the contract through City Hall. So there's that side of it as well, which will go into the criteria, so that we can make sure that we can actually fund them.
And kudos to Charlotte, because that is no small feat. They're not used to seeing grants like this, especially on the business sustainability side. Those do not look like the typical arts programming grants, and so it has been a process.
Okay, any further comments? If not, thank you. Let's move to the next agenda item, which will be public art update. Lynn?
And, I am wondering, John Paul, I think that the next two are actually the same item.
Okay,
that they have, the public art update is the Fair Park.
So let's combine them.
I think they're the same, and Lori unfortunately could not be here today, but if you all remember, Lori and Jesse at the last meeting spoke about their work on the Fair Park process, which has a huge implication for public art. And in the last, was that just 3 weeks ago? There has been an entire inventory and needs assessment completed on every work of art in Fair Park. And before Lynn comes up, and I think she's going to join me, just a week ago, we got a spreadsheet that Lori has actually seen as well, of every single piece of art, every single conservation need, prioritizing, estimating the budget, looking at who could do the work. I mean, it was the densest spreadsheet you've ever seen. And Lynn and Kay, working from the Americans for the Arts Conference in Boston, we're working night and day, going back and forth with these experts to firm up this summary, which is in your packet, of our learnings, if you will, about Fair Park. And it's been quite a process, but this was presented, was it just last night? To Walt Human's panel when they're really starting to think about all of the moving pieces in Fair Park. Now they are informed and they know of all of the needs of the city's public art collection, which just a week ago we did not know. So it has been fast and furious. Do you want to walk them through the summary document?
Yeah, of course.
Lynn is the quintessential expert, so.
And
You're on.
all right, I am on. So let me just kind of walk you through what this document really is telling you. So from the spreadsheets, we wanted to kind of give you a summary. So first of all, when we were trying to figure out how we were going to get a comprehensive, I'm going to scooch up, a comprehensive list of what really is in Fair Park, because we knew that things had happened that weren't in the public art collection, and we knew that some things had been done by other people and were present in Fair Park. So, so we asked how we could go about this, and Walt Hume and his foundation actually funded this. So that's important for you to know, that they were enough involved and engaged about what the artwork needed to do, that they needed a list about the artwork. So if you look at it, we've gone over, there were 81 works that were actually looked at by conservators. And they were prioritized, so they were given a priority. So one priority was it needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. 2, in 1 to 3 years. 3 is 3 to 5 years, and so that will help understand. Now there were some artwork that needed really specialists to look at, that it was out of the scope of the conservators that were brought in to look at it. So there was a sculpture conservator, there was a mural specialist, and some people that had background in architecture, because 85% of the artwork is actually attached to a building, so it's very much integrated with the locations. So if you just look, so for example, the Gulf Stream, the water couldn't be turned off, so it couldn't be looked at. But for Madeline Miller and Dorothy Austin, there's some indication that those doors that are bronze are polychromed. So more research needs to be done on those. Additionally, which is really fun, 38 work were added to the list that weren't present on the list before. So that's very important. And some of it is still covered up. So, some of the murals are just covered with 4 layers of white paint. And so they were not visible. They were not on the list. So what happened with the conservation team is they created a budget based on bringing experts in. So there was a per diem, there was an allowance for airfare. And we know just from our expertise of dealing with the artwork in Dallas that there are conservators who are able to do that. So that's what, if you flip your page over, that's what the difference in conservation costs are. We know that there are certain things that conservators here can do. For example, bronzes. We have people who are very capable to do bronzes. There's no need to add the 20 or 30% to that because they don't need travel fees. So if you just look at those numbers that I am not going to even try and read to you, they're pretty evident. So when you move past the numbers, then you can see really what the top priorities are. So there were 32 pieces of art that were really top priority, and mainly they're on the Esplanade. So the cameos, those of you who came and took the public art tour while we were at Fair Park can remember seeing those in the murals. And the big murals inside the Hall of State are number 1 priorities. When you get to the second priorities, there are really 40 projects. Once you get past the big priority 1, here's what needs to do to stabilize the work, there are some additional things that could be done even to that work. And then priority 3, 16 things, not very many things to do. And then if you really look at what the conservation needs are, it's per year, it's really not a great giant number.
But as a percent of your budget for the whole city.
Okay, it is a giant number.
Thank you. So this is important.
Okay, so in perspective, okay, not okay. All right, so but really emphasizing the public art management recommendation at the bottom, if you'll read through that, it is an important recommendation. It's important for you to review it and see what you think about it. And if you have any questions, or if Jennifer wants to
Well, I
make
do
any comments.
think your total conservation budget is $180,000.
Yes.
So if this, which is, as everyone knows, they have been working fast and furiously, because for several years that was zero. So, as we would say, we would always need more, but this is, and what depends on which vantage point. $75,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money maybe when you're thinking about the millions that the fair will have, but as a percent, now that we know this, when we're thinking about our budget for the whole city, it does have implications, so. Are there questions about the recommendation? Because that is going to be, as we think about the schedule for Fair Parks, kind of over the summer leading into August, September, this is what we're going to be working on mostly. You look like you're about to ask something.
Yeah, no, thanks for the recommendation, because that's what we were asking for, so we could take talking points to our council people. So thank you very much. And I'm curious, so the number to focus on within those requests is the 70,000?
For just the maintenance.
That's annual?
Annual maintenance, after conservation, so, maintenance is just.
So
Yes.
has this been addressed within the budget that David just addressed with us? Is it not added in?
Unfortunately, it's not added in. The other one is the 1.8 million on the previous page.
Mhm.
There's two things,
Right.
both numbers. No, because we just literally got this yesterday afternoon.
But if we have till October, and then that foundation, that group is forming this summer, and we're making recommendations for an art person on that panel, can't we just keep pushing that all? Because, we have quite a few months before September, so.
I'm sorry, I've lost you. The group forming for Fair Park?
For Fair Park.
Yes, yes. We can definitely, and that's why they asked for this report and paid for it.
Right,
So
but then
that
add this to also our budget requests for the OCA.
It will depend on what the council decides to do about Fair Park.
Mhm.
I think if they are definitely going to do Fair Park, my understanding, we would love to obviously have more money regardless, but I think right now, we are more probably intent on trying to get the cultural center funding back, put back in the $111,000.
At this point, I have to do a couple of things. One
Yeah.
is just that I think we need to bring you
I
in.
think that's the.
So you can give from your task group, sort of updated.
We have not been
summary
allowed increases,
And
I
some
guess
thoughts
is what I'm
about what you think about this, and then
Okay.
we'll come back
Okay, that-
to Mr. Rich. But,
That makes sense?
Yeah.
This is, I think, a pretty.
Yeah, sure. So
Junction.
at the last meeting, I said that I would bring to the commission a list of recommendations or asks that we would ask of the Fair Park Foundation, led by Walt Heumann. A couple days after that, the timeline for the park board approving the foundation and city council voting on it got pushed back months. So I don't think it's even going to be included in this year's budget. So as everything is evolving, we're still trying to figure out, Lori and I, in conjunction with Jennifer, what our strategy is going to be. There's lots of, I think we all have the same goals, which are to preserve the art and to make sure that our cultural facilities and programming in Fair Park are taken care of and that we're represented. So it's just trying to figure out the best way to do that. And so I think by August, we will have a better idea of how to do that, and that will still give us time to go to our council persons and advocate on behalf of arts and culture. But I haven't had a chance to digest the whole report, but it's great. It's the information we needed. I'm very curious if, the human plan, which wants to spend, millions and millions of dollars on capital improvements. Well, we have 1.8 million in deferred maintenance here, so it'd be great to get that included. It'd be wonderful to have a presence on the board, but those are all the things that we're thinking through and we'll come back to you with.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to Mr. Rich.
Politically speaking, what efforts, if any, have we engaged with parks to determine if there could be a collaborative effort with the item 1 items? My understanding is we've all been sent information regarding the meeting on the 30th. I'm wondering whether or not we've made any touch with Max, who's the chair, I believe, and as well as the executive director. At a lot of the meetings of the Library Arts over the last few years, I've heard suggestions, collaborative efforts. It goes back to that Neighborhood Plus deal, recognizing that where we don't have cultural centers, we might have a library, and where we can bring a lot of effort to those. So have we communicated with parks? Has there been any informal discussion about joint or they assuming the responsibility? And have there been any discussions informally with the individual appointed by the mayor to process this foundation vote?
There were several questions in
Of
there.
course.
So let me take them one by one. The parks have been really good partners for a long time in helping us with the conservation efforts at Fair Park. And I should have said this up front, Lynn and Kay actually gave me a tour today of Fair Park and showed me some of the work that has been done. And I was fascinated personally about all of the murals that are under paint, because you can look and clearly there was symmetry at one point, and one mural's gone and one mural's still there. So it was fascinating. And there have been conversations. Now that we have this, we're also keenly interested in what agreement the park department is trying to get for management and oversight with the Fair Park Foundation. And Kay has been reaching out with her counterparts to try to understand their agreement as it currently stands, because I think they are several weeks or even months ahead of us in that conversation. So that is going on. To the politics of the vote, I have not gotten there. So if y'all have we're just not, literally, we are taking this in day by day. So Nancy McCoy really understands this very, very, very well. She and Kay have been in conversations probably daily for the last couple of weeks, and she has been the one briefing Walt Human on this information. So that's kind of where it stands right now.
As you well understand and appreciate, this vote is going to be a political vote.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And we are just we didn't have enough information, quite frankly, to know
All right.
what stakes we have.
Okay, thank you.
It might be thoughtful this time just to share that the work that Jesse and Laura Smith are
Yes.
doing has been, I will use some of their terms, it's evolving, it's been prudent, it's been discreet, and it's been very thoughtful and focused.
It's laid the groundwork.
Trying to get us to a point where that conversation could have some substantive merit. Absolutely. I don't think anything happens in public policy that's not political. Now, a lot of folks don't like to use the term, but that's why it's called public policy. So it's all political. So don't be shy about that. But I think one has to be thoughtful and discreet. One of the things Lynn and Jennifer shared with us was they just received substantial, if you will, research and information that they need to sift through and be a bit thoughtful about as well. And it's coming at an interesting time when there are interesting transitions taking place, not only at the Fair Park, but at the city level as well. So I think they've been very thoughtful about this process, and I think the kinds of questions that we're raising here today provides important guidance. Now, still in terms of the time, don't forget also that we have assigned to us from the park board a liaison. And she's not happy to be here today, but in terms of touching all of the bases that one might think about touching in the protocol, let's be absolutely certain that we share these most recent findings and comments, if you will, with that liaison, because that person is also expected by the park board to bring back word from this body, what we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're proposing, and what we may or may not think is important. So it's
And
important.
same with Lori and Jesse. I mean, there are a
Yes.
lot of, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So are there other questions at this particular time or comments regarding this process?
Thank you.
The words Lynn's used also, they're extremely important. I think in this document also, particularly on this item, and while they're still trying to figure out governance, there are real talking points here too, in this document, real strong talking points, that if one is going to go forward with our representatives, if you will, to advocate for. So we need to be sure, again, that we're focused on what those are, and it would be good just on this agenda item, while it is not separate, it is so unique. I think there needs to be a set of talking points on it that may take forward too. And it is, Jesse talked a little bit about the calendar, particularly on the discussion of governance, is involved and still moving. I think the city and park department and park members are all a ways some distance before making any kind of final decisions yet. So there is a window that we have to work in. Okay? Okay. Thank you so very much for that. I think we go back here to Miss Jennifer again.
Yes.
The summer youth programming update that she can do in less than 10 minutes.
I'm going to do it very quickly, but I think it's so important for you all to understand. One of the best things about starting a new job like this on May 25th is it's the final week of school, and everybody is gearing up for summer. And summer at the OCA is an incredibly important time. So I've pulled about 4 or 5 slides from the presentation that I gave, which was much more detailed, to the Arts, Culture, and Library Committee on Monday. I'm going to go to the next slide. I think these are the statistics from last summer, but they are quite impressive. That the OCA funded organizations providing over 150 summer programs to approximately 37,000 children and youth last summer. And we served approximately 3,000 kids with free programs at the cultural centers, which represented a 66% increase last year. So those are huge numbers. Yes, the library is doing huge numbers. Yes, Big Thought is doing huge numbers. But it is so important when you hear about the summer brain drain and kids that really lose ground over the summer, all that we are doing to enrich their learning and life through the arts. Next slide. I had so much fun looking into what we are funding through other organizations. And when you look at this list, it's very, I think, easy to say, oh yeah, the usual suspects, but you don't understand how unique some of these programs are. The Dallas Opera has an opera boot camp for kids, which I think lasts 5 weeks, and it has physical activities as well as a lot of music and arts education. Anita Martinez does a very intensive 3-week dance camp. The Salmon Center does a really wonderful jazz program. So it is an incredibly diverse list of programming. Culturally, ages. I personally have read a lot about how teenagers sometimes can get ignored in some of these programs for teenagers. The Creative Arts Center has a program called Metalhead, where young people, many of whom have been in the foster care system or are part of Cafe Momentum, are learning how to use welding torches and jewelry making. And it is it's all teenagers. And it's sometimes less important about the jewelry that gets made as it is the ability to have the responsibility to have that piece of equipment in your hand and to get to be creative and concentrate, and the cooperation. I just love that program. So there's some really unique and diverse programs on this list. Next slide. As you're probably aware, we also fund things through our Community Artist Program, which is some of our most diverse programming. This summer, we are providing 18 artists at over 80 summer programs all across Dallas. Many are in conjunction with the Mayor's Summer Reading Program. Again, that collaboration with the library is critical. And last summer, we reached 2,100 kids through these programs at all of these different locations. Programs like Rainbow Days, which works with homeless youth, The arts programming is not their sweet spot. We provided amazing programs through the CAP program. A lot of the libraries and recreation centers, we did a zip code analysis, and this is just summer program, right? And so all the blue shaded areas are where we have reached zip codes, again, just summer. And then that you can see the cultural centers located with the stars. Next slide. And then I did want to just focus in on the summer camps at the cultural centers. The Bathhouse Cultural Center, they're having their final program tonight, winding up their 3-week camp, and they, I think, ended up with 37 students. Aging into the high school years. It's very multidisciplinary. This camp has been going on a long time. I think they're in their 9th year. And one of the things that you need to understand, and I have learned a lot on, is the quality of instruction. They are taught by master teaching artists. This is not popsicle art. And I think sometimes it's easy to dismiss summer, art as kind of that level. The head teacher is Kanetta Massey, who's done it for 7 years, Booker T graduate, LA Theater Academy graduate, working actress with the Dallas Children's Theater. 2 other teachers, Seth McGill is a well-known local actor and SMU graduate, and Johnny Sequenzia, who is a touring musician and actor. The level of instruction and what these students are exposed to is key, and you see this at all of the cultural centers, but I really want to underscore that it is different than most art programs. Next slide. The Latino Cultural Center started Monday on a 4-week program that's in partnership with Academia, and it's all middle school students, so they're all slightly different, and they will do a completely self-produced, student-driven original performance with, it's dance, art, visual, film, and digital photography. Next. I had the privilege of spending the morning on Monday at the South Dallas Cultural Center. This is a beloved summer camp. There are 60, I think they were at 69 students. They'll probably get to 75, but the waiting list for this program is as long as the number of children we can serve. To put this one in perspective, kids come back year over year over year. When they graduate from the program, we hire them as teaching assistants, which is, I think, a real testament to the program. They are providing breakfast, lunch, and snacks, taking the students on field trips throughout the summer. This is the longest program. It's 5 weeks, and it is all day. The children can get dropped off as early as 7:30 in the morning, and we have such dedicated staff, many of which are staying past 6 p.m., so parents who work far out can get there to pick the kids up. Again, master artist teachers, the principal dancer from the Senegalese Ballet, a touring African drummer. It is not your typical art instruction, and so that is so unique, and I've been seeing all the contracts going out to the artists to help teach this program and really infuse it with that special energy. And then, last but not least, is the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. And their program is a partnership with Academia Theater Company. Their final presentation, if you are interested, will be July 8th at 4:45 p.m. At the Oak Cliff Cultural Center. The students present their work that they have self-produced, and it is also a street festival atmosphere. And I have heard from multiple people it is not to be missed, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And again, we have, I think, 9 or 10 youth leaders this summer, which have grown up in the process and are, getting to be leaders developed in this way. So it's a lot to be proud of. Academia is super excited. I was talking with them to be a partner. So there's some that we partner with best practices, and some that are a little bit more homegrown. And but I want you all to understand that this very much is the programming that the OCA is homegrowing, if you will. Are there any questions? If you ever want to visit, if you have one in your neighborhood or somebody wants to visit, like your councilman or councilwoman, let me know as well, because you can get so much from just 45 minutes or an hour.
Jennifer, why don't you just roll this right on into
Oh, perfect.
your,
1 second, let me find my
chair's
notes.
report.
Oh, director report.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is a quick question over here to the left.
I love that presentation. But, I mean, those are the programs that would be cut by the 21% reduction in programming for the cultural centers, right? All right.
And just so you know, yes, and a statistic that really resonated with me is South Dallas Cultural Center spends over half of their annual budget on that summer program. So when I said, how do we serve more students? Why is the waiting list so long? It does put it into context that when the budgets are that thin And the programs are so rich, which I am not obviously in favor of in any way, watering down the richness. We are limited in the number of students we can serve.
Not that Mr. Smith needs any support with his advocacy, but I would also point out that all of the cultural centers were just barely restored back this past year. They had all been significantly reduced over almost the past 9 years. For the past 9 years. So it's not like they've ever been flush. They've always had difficulty. And now expectations have been raised a bit. They're doing outstanding work. But just remember, as we go through this budget process and we're having our points, that to reduce them could be a critical backstep. That's really not worthy of OCA, in my opinion. Yes, ma'am. Please.
I have one comment, and if you look at the budgets for the Cultural Arts Center, we can't say in any way, even if they get restored, they're up to a basic minimal level. When you talk about a budget of $57,000 for the bathhouse, what do you expect them to do programmatically over an entire year at $57,000 and expected now to go down to 44? So I think it behooves us not to ever say that this is good, okay? What we have is better than the very worst we had before, but it's nowhere near what even a well-run organization can produce. I mean, as a former person who did small nonprofits, this is peanuts, and it's hard, as good as you are, to make this serve children or adults. That's my,
Great talking points.
Yes.
Any further comments?
Yeah, I have one. Is there any way that the city can assist in, it just kills me inside that there are all these kids that are on this waiting list that don't have this opportunity, right? So when school's not in session, it's in the summer. Is there any way that the city could help assist with getting some corporate sponsors involved to help subsidize the funding for this so that there could be
So
further?
if you had been at the Arts, Culture, and Library Committee, I think the contrast between the library summer programming, which is branded, named, corporately underwritten, I mean, they have a whole host of programs all with corporate sponsors, and ours, the contrast was very clear. That the library just has a little bit more history in being able to sell these programs to corporate underwriting. So that is definitely a clear imperative for us, because I think it's easier also to go ask for more money if you do it as a match and things like that.
Sure.
And to your
Well,
point
yeah,
about
city matching grants or implementing programs?
Raising the money and then trying to lobby for more, I
Right.
guess. I feel like, I know what you were saying about kids that can't get in our program. I will say Harold at the South Dallas Cultural Center is a master. He grew up in the community of working with Councilwoman Young and the Y and steering families to other programs where there are. But it does limit our ability to go out and market these programs, because why market a program when your waiting list is already so long and you just make more people mad? So there is a challenge there, because in a weird way, we don't tout it because we don't want more people, you know what I mean? There's a natural limitation there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
A little bit of it is we're learning, right? Because we can't, this summer, I think it is what it is, right? And then we need to raise more money for next summer to help, I think, get some of
But
these.
the cultural centers often have 2 and 3 people of total personnel.
Yeah.
And you got 2 people, one art and maintenance of the building, et cetera. When do you go out, or how do you even have a person who's both able to do gut level management of programs and also can fundraise with large corporations? It's just a rare person like Harold.
But a couple of things, and so we move to the next now. The last 2 people that also need any additional advocacy come in is Ms. Holland or Ms. Saldivar.
That's why I put us up
It's a
here.
great comment. It's a great point,
It's
and
a
I think
great point.
it's a great
And
point.
Here's, I would only add, in modest support of these very generous individuals, One challenge that we have been given as an agency with our quote-unquote new sense of direction is a refreshed strategic plan. I think a lot of what is what I would call the 19th century industrial way of operating that we do today and how we're designed can change.
That's right.
And we can use this opportunity and these comments and these challenges and these findings as resources as we begin that process. And I think we can solve some of those sponsorship. We have to change the intention of how
And
we...
I'm trying to do a better job. The first thing I can do is try to tell the story better of what we're doing now, which the more I'm talking to council and presenting at the committee, I feel like is already helping people understand the vital nature of what we're doing now. So people can, that's the very first thing we have to do is, here's what we're doing on these shoestring budgets.
Great. Okay.
Director report. It's pretty short, as you can imagine. We are definitely in the throes of the budget, and I love your point about talking points after our deliberation tomorrow, and we will circle back and let y'all know where that kind of comes out. Same with Fair Park. If you have any other questions or thoughts, though, please send them to myself or David. I have been fast and furious trying to get out and meet with everybody, but bear with me. And I think with council starting their break next Monday, I'll have more time to set up meetings. So the ones I've had have been incredibly helpful. I love talking to people who have been on the commission for years and then talking to people who are new. I can't thank you enough for your candor and your advice. And please know, Lori's not here, but I probably talked to her the most because of all the Fair Park stuff. But it's been incredibly helpful. You can't do this job and be successful without really knowing what's important to all of you all and how you feel comfortable talking to your councilmen and helping us. So thank you again. Throughout the rest of the summer, we are going to be looking at a plan for the strategic plan, if you will. But I think it's really important to, we had 3 people go to the Americans for the Arts Conference in Boston last week. And the whole, and I'm sorry David had to leave, but the whole focus of the conference was equity in the arts, which is absolutely going to be so important. And we are starting to get names of people who have done other cities that have done really good in recent strategic plans, and try to map that process out so that we get the buy-in, because it will be, once we embark, it's like the train leaves the station. And so we will do a good job in a couple of meetings of letting you guys know what we can all expect. Any other questions?
Okay, look, what I'd like to do
Thank
is I'm
you
going
all.
to suspend the chair report. We're not going to do one, and we're going to combine the last 3 as we go around the table. If you have announcements, new business, or liaison reports, as we go around, that's what we'll do at this point in the agenda. I'll suspend the chair report altogether. You want to start on your end? Ms. Good? No report? Any announcements? Nothing? We're so good to see you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. No, I don't have any. Yes, sir.
Hey, real briefly, I finally met with the Friends of Latino Culture Center back on June, 2 weeks ago. And they're going to have their first board meeting on July the 12th at 12 noon. Ever since I came aboard, they had not had a meeting. So I finally got to sit down and visit with the chairperson and everybody. So hopefully from then on, I'll start having reports for you guys.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you. Ms. Holt?
No committee reports. However, I'd like to give kudos to my councilperson, Sandy Grayson. I would like to take credit for her action, but obviously I can't. But in the discussion of the Valley View Mall issue, she's the one that stood up before council and asked that we guarantee the safety of the mosaics and that they be used in the new buildings. So I think if each one of you would now go to your councilperson and just make sure when that comes up again, they vote for the savior of that and push the thing about having someone from the commission on every panel, that would be terrific.
All right. Mr. Carroll?
Nothing.
Ms. Aldebar?
Pass.
Mr. Rich?
I've now made it to all of my organizations but one, and I want to highlight that I visited Tico Theater, a great gym in the Bishop Arts area, and they had done a production of with children from the county services by a local playwright. Everyone had great fun. My wife had great fun. So that's one of the side benefits of sitting on this is finding things like that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lehman? All right. Mr. Aldo? Mrs. Smith? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come then to the end of this meeting. If there are any more questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I overlooked one item on last month's minutes.
Please.
My name doesn't appear as either in attendance or absent. Is there anybody here that can?
Well, yes, there are a couple of people, starting with the director. And then I think there's Ms. Thompson.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's just a simple oversight. Vanessa, could we add that to the minutes?
Yes, I will. Sorry about that.
Okay. Before we leave, we can handle this very, very quickly. I would like to, would you mind making a motion that
To
we
amend?
amend the minutes to show the participation of Commissioner Lee at the last meeting?
Let's
As adopted.
amend the minutes that were adopted to include your name on the attendees.
All in favor?
Wait, can I make one more quick comment?
Okay, wait a minute, we want to be sure, before, we're still regarding the minutes?
No.
Okay, the minutes is done, so no, any opposed? I think we had a modest sound, but I don't think it was really a no. So I would say it's been adopted and accepted. Okay, Ms. Salvador.
Okay, I just want to have one quick thing to add. This past weekend was the Oak Cliff Film Festival. It's the 5th year. This was originated by 4 filmmakers, local Dallas filmmakers, that started this festival about 5 years ago. I have the privilege of being on the Oak Cliff Foundation, which is a 501c3 that owns the Texas Theater, and we lease it to these 4 filmmakers for a fraction of the cost. And it's been a really dynamic business model to take a historic empty building in Oak Cliff and have it be a cultural kind of jewel for Jefferson Boulevard. And we were, the lady from 29 Pieces just left, but it was just a really beautiful collaboration to see all of that and how that worked together. And they were a recipient, actually, of the Cultural Vitality Grant, and they were able to underwrite 20 free passes for local neighborhood people that got to attend the festival. And we had a panel of writers from Filmmaker Magazine, from New York Times. I mean, we had people from all over the world fly in for this past weekend. So it was just an overall, just a big success to show that what you can do with an active community and engagement and good use of funds. So anyways, just wanted to report that. It was awesome.
Thank you so very much. Any further comments or input at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Correct. We've been working on the allocations committee, and I'm just wondering if our attendance on those committees is being tracked.
Yes, it is.
Okay, we've been working with Charlotte, giving hours, 7, 8, 10 hours, and we just want to make sure
Is
we're getting
that
credit
all?
for that. That's all, that's a modest number of hours,
That's-
but
that's
just make sure
a good
that it's
point.
being noted.
Great
Right.
question, great
Okay,
question.
all right.
Ms. Jennifer, do you have?
I will say, I know how hard and dedicated each and every one you are.
Okay.
Thank you, because the prep time, the panel time.
Yes.
the meetings, showing up for meetings that you're not required to be at, like on Monday, it really is appreciated, and you can't do that.
Okay. Just so it's noted, right, okay.
All right, let me close this out by saying how delighted I am that we have Jennifer. I think she's really a tremendous asset and is bringing some important freshness to us, and we appreciate so much that you're here and do stand ready to support you in any way that we can. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you for your dedication, the time that you give us, and the good words and the good thoughts you give us to trying to move this process forward. With that being said, let's call this meeting to close at 6:10. All right.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.